Okay, this is part 32 of Rebel. I do have a shirt on. It's just a tube top, so there's no straps. But please make sure to like and subscribe before we start this video. Okay, Daniel. When we finally return to our apartment in the dark hours of the morning, Eden showers and collapses into a deep sleep. He doesn't stir again until the sun has already risen high in the sky. At least he doesn't seem to be dreaming. I spend most of the time awake leaning against our balcony railing, watching the headlines and videos rotate on the city's jumbotrons. News about what's happening in Antarctica comes out in a steady stream. I watch the screens and see tanks roll through the Undercity, making their way down streets full of bonfires and angry people. There are police struggling to contain the chaos. Raw City in flames as troops. Broken virtual system Raw City in flames as troops. Broken virtual system struggle. The president has called for an emergency meeting today in Balta, but while all the politicians try to hash out a plan, time is ticking by. My lips tighten in frustration. The advantage that Han has always had is the ability to ignore laws entirely. It was my advantage on the streets, too. When you aren't accountable to anything, you can move pretty gaudy fast. I look away, sick, as police surround a protester and swing their batons down at her body. The rest of the crowds raise their fists, cheering for Han. He had wanted to make his point about the city's corrupt system. He's just willing to sacrifice all the people he claims to be fighting for in the process. By the time my brother gets up, the sun has started to paint the sky gold. I glance at him with a wry smile. "You look awful," I say. Eden lets out a single laugh as he limps over to join me. He's holding his drone in one hand, its engine glowing with a faint blue light. "I don't know how you climb all over the city with that, without being completely useless the next day. My legs are killing me." I offer him a sip of my coffee. He takes it, cupping the hot mug between his hands, and we're silent for a moment while the light turns steadily stronger. Eden tosses the drone in the air, and we watch as it hovers in place, steady and straight. Eden seems lost in thought, but I don't push him. There's a new ease in the quiet between us. Finally, he straightens and nods at the horizon, in the direction of Antarctica. "I saw the news," he says. "The Antarctican military has imposed martial law on Ross City." I shake my head. "No call signals are getting out of the city right now. It's like no one knows how to function without the level system in place." For us, who came from the humble streets of Lake, functioning on days when the power grid died was something we were used to dealing with. But a place like Ross City suddenly stripped of its technology? Eden moves his fingers idly in the air, and his drone shifts to match his gesture, swerving right and then left. He frowns thoughtfully. "Han said that his device would wipe the entire level system clean," he says, "but something about what Pressa said yesterday stuck with me. She mentioned that Han might have taken down the entire system so that he could bring it back up again, replace it with something to suit him." I nod. "But?" He shakes his head. His fingers move again, and the drone obeys, flipping once in the air. "It's stupid to dismantle the entire system only to rebuild it all over again. I don't think he wiped it all clean. I think it's just suppressed somehow, that he did something to disrupt the implementation of the system, but that it's all still there somewhere, intact. It's much easier for him to work with something like that." He shrugs. "I wouldn't dismantle my drone completely if I wanted to change it. I'd just revise it." I look on, marveling at the invention of his drone as it turns this way and that, its power source strong and stable. "Are you saying you might know how he did that?" There's a long pause, and when Eden finally nods, I note the light in his eyes. "I'm saying I can find a way to reverse it. He's using the engine that I built to power it. If I can get back into his circle, I can find a way to shut the whole thing down and get the level system back up." To prove his point, he waves his drone back into the balcony and lets it hover between us. Then he reaches for it, sliding his finger underneath the glowing engine. The engine gives a sudden, strange noise, and then it shuts abruptly down, clattering to the balcony floor. I look back at my brother. The old fear rises in my chest, and images flash through my mind of him captured in the Undercity, his face pale and frightened. But you'd need to be back in his good graces to do it," I say, echoing his words. "You have to find him, yeah?" He nods. "The machine needs a physical chip installed on it. I have to do it physically." The terror of not knowing where the Republic had taken him, the uncertainty of what was being done to him, the paranoia of ever letting him go again. It all rises back up in my chest. Eden can see it on my face because he leans toward me and fixes his steady gaze on mine. You told me last night that I don't ever have to go it alone, he says. Well, that goes for you too. I can do this if you let me, but I'm going to need your help. June's too. Everything in me wants to pull him back, tell him to stay here, stay safe. But I know he's right. His silhouette is long and lanky now, no longer the small boy I once carried through a war-torn street. There are no guarantees that he'll come out of this safely, that any of us will. But I also know without a doubt that he's the only one who can do this. At last I nod. What do you need from us? A diversion. I need to convince Han that I've decided to go rogue from what you and the others are planning to do, that I want in on his plans. Come back to Ross City with me. Find ways to slow him down. If you and June then go after his device with what little we do know, if you are acting from the outside, then maybe I can convince Han that I'm helping him keep it safe from you. It's ridiculous. Too dangerous to play this kind of game with a mobster who has survived an entire life on tricks and double crosses. Han is going to figure this out, and then my brother will be completely at his mercy. But I still find myself nodding at him. I'm in, I say. He blinks, and I realize that he's been expecting me to push back. Do we go to the president with this plan today? Do you think they'll agree to this? I shrug. There's no way in hell any of them will, not in a meeting anyway. But that doesn't change anything we're planning to do. We don't have time to wait around watching them debate issues. He looks at me in confusion. You mean you're going to go behind the AIS's back on this? On the government? His words bring a smile to my face. My brother, the rule breaker who has made me panic more times than I can count, has never actually rebelled on the world stage. The old part of me, the wilding from the streets, the boy who'd spent his life running the city and dodging the Republic, stirs. I shake my head. I'm such a bad influence on you. At that, a grin creeps onto his lips too. You mean we're just going to go? As soon as we can sneak out of this country. By the time we discuss it with them, they'll have no choice but to agree. They're going to kill you for this. I give him a sidelong grin. They can try. We laugh a little at that, then fall back into silence. What if we're doing the wrong thing, Daniel? Eden asks me. His voice is grave again. What if restoring the entire system is exactly what shouldn't happen? I look at my brother and take a deep breath. Then maybe we don't restore it to exactly what it was, I finally reply. I study his face, taking in how serious he is. What are you planning? I say. What are you planning? I say. Oh, sorry, the pronouns in this are getting weird. Okay. I can add a chip to the machine that tweaks how it handles the level system. He digs papers out of his pocket and waves me over to the desk. Then we bend over it as he points out where his engine is installed. The machine pulses a signal through the city's entire level system, he explains as he scribbles. So we pulse a new signal through it that tells the level system what to do. He glances up at me. Maybe we add some things to that signal that changes how the level system judges people hooked up to it. I frown at him. And you can do this before we leave? He asks. This is, okay. It can't just be me that's confused about this. Okay, I frown at him. And you can do this before we leave? He asks. It's the machine that's complicated to put together, not the signal. Once you understand how it works, you can run another signal through easily. I watched them test one, and it took a matter of minutes. I think the author got confused as to what perspective they were writing, because that's the only way that this page makes sense. Okay. Sorry, we're going to read what the author wrote. Okay. I think of the late nights I'd seen him up before as a small boy and as a young man. The light of creation is bright in his eyes now, and as I consider his words, my emotions gradually alternate from uncertainty to wary hope. A rebellion within a rebellion, I murmur. Eden smiles a little. Never let it be said that we take the easy way out. June seems even less enthusiastic about the plan than I am, but she still shows up at our apartment late in the afternoon, her outfit simple and black, her voice hushed. Beside me, Pressa has a backpack that makes her look even more petite than she is, but she stands tall and confident, the grief in her gaze now replaced with resolution. If they come after our plane and we're forced to stop, let me handle it, June says. I swear, somehow these things only ever happen when I'm with you two. I lean against the doorway and smile down at her. You're the one who agreed to help us. I didn't say I wouldn't come, she shrugs. Andon will forgive me. It has to be done. I reach for her hand and brush her fingers with mine. Thank you, I murmur. My eyes skip to Pressa, who has unzipped her backpack and is handing something over to Eden. It looks like a small package of glass vials. This is a serum for Han's lung infection, she says. The way Eden describes his hoarse voice reminds me of the later stages of my dad's illness. So I used to make this serum for him out of some of the herbs we carried. It's not a cure, so don't tell him that it is. He won't believe you. But it should improve how he feels if he takes it every day. She replaces the vials and gives the backpack to Eden. And it's swallowed? Eden asks. Swallowed, Pressa nods. But I did make one change. Han's serum contains a powerful sleeping drug. It'll knock him out pretty hard and give him a slight fever that will throw off his judgment and strength. Give him a heavy enough dose of the serum and it'll stop his heart entirely. Trying to poison Han will be a risky move. I bet he survived dozens of such attempts. Still, Eden gives Pressa a grim nod. My brother's feelings for her are on full display here. I can see it in the way he pulls her in for a long hug and how tightly he holds her, the faint blush on his cheeks as she smiles and hugs him back. In them, I see the early signs of how, despite our backgrounds, June and I had first come together. Finally, we're ready to head out. Your signal, I say to Eden. He nods. His face is paler than it should be, and his hands are trembling slightly, but he seems calm enough as he holds up a tiny chip so small that it could sit on the edge of his smallest finger. Got it, he replies. As the president prepares to host his political meeting with the elector, we take an unmarked military car to the airfield and into a plane that June has somehow gotten for us. The soldier who salutes us as we board is sweating up a storm. He doesn't meet our eyes. June stops, though, to put a reassuring hand on his shoulder. I'll vouch for you, she says. Thank you for your help. The elector himself will pardon you. I give you my word. He shuffles his feet. Of course, Commander, he replies to June. We take off in silence. The plane has been airborne for only a half hour before a call comes in, right as we clear the waters of the Republic. The pilot's voice flickers on overhead, and we all tilt our heads up to her as her apologetic words fill the air. Commander Icarus, she says regretfully, the Elector Primo has ordered me to patch him through. He would like a word with you. June doesn't even blink. Of course, ma'am, she replies. I find myself marveling yet again at how cool and calm she can be even in the most stressful circumstances. There's a pause, followed by Andon's deep, familiar voice. He sounds more weary than furious. Hello, Commander, he says, addressing June. I assume, as usual, that you have a good reason for leaving the country without notifying me? June looks a little guiltily at his tone. As always, she agrees. It has everything to do with the emergency that you are currently discussing with President Ikari. We thought it best to discuss it with you while the plan is in action. There's no time to waste. Is Daniel Wing with you, then? Another voice comes on, and this time it's Director Mins. She sounds less formal than Andon and much more livid. I'm here, I say, glancing at my brother. With Eden. And do you have an explanation for this? Or should I have you all court-martialed the instant you land in Ross City? She sighs. I'll have you know that the president is sitting with us as we speak. He would like to know why I can't seem to wrangle one of my agents into line. You know it has nothing to do with you, Director, I reply evenly. President Ikari, sir, the Director has been nothing but gracious to me, but there are policies in place in Ross City that have her hands tied, and in turn, they tie my hands. With the deepest respect, sir, the best way we have right now of confronting this crisis is for us to act against those policies you have in place. I smile a little, even though I know they can't see us. Of course we can discuss it now, if you like. There's a pause, then the sigh of a man that I've never communicated directly with before. Enlighten us, then, Mr. Wing, he says. It's a voice I've only ever heard in broadcasts or on screens. Now he's addressing me by name. Suddenly I feel the audacity of what we're doing, of going against the leader of Antarctica. Doesn't mean he knows what the hell he's doing, I remind myself. So I take a deep breath and straighten in my chair. My brother Eden has had personal contact with Dominic Hahn before, I say. So have I. We've seen a glimpse of how Han's operation works. Eden thinks that, contrary to what we think happened, Han did not completely erase the level system. It's only been temporarily disabled. Unless we act quickly, Han may have plans to revise it to work in his favor. I don't know what the hell that might do. I only know that we have to find a way to stop him before he does it and disrupts the capital of our entire country. I look meaningfully at my brother, then Anita nods. I think I can find a way in, he says, if I can get close to Han again. There's an incredulous laugh from the president. Is that the boy talking? He says. Eden, you're going to take on Han alone? Not alone, he replies. His voice is so confident and calm that I can't help but feel a surge of pride. The director stays silent, and when she speaks again, her voice sounds thoughtful. What do you plan to do when you arrive? She asks. Eden hesitates, exchanging a quick glance with Pressa. I'll find a way to make contact with Han, he says. He's using the engine design that I'd made. It's not a stretch to think that he might still want to recruit me onto his team. He told me himself that he expected me to come back under his fold, and Pressa knows enough about the layout of the Undercity to take us somewhere where we can get his attention. And Daniel? June? We'll be staging a diversion, June says. We'll be trying to break Han's system from the outside, staging an obvious attack to draw his attention. When Eden warns him about what we're doing, we're hoping it'll persuade Han to let Eden into his circle again. Of course, I add. It'd be helpful to have the AIS and the military at our back during all this. Getting arrested by our own the instant we land won't be much help, so our fate's ultimately in your hands. I pause, abruptly nervous that maybe they won't go along with this after all, that we've all just signed our own prison sentences. The irony of it, after everything we've been through, almost makes me laugh. Across from me, June's eyes are fixed on mine, dark and logical. I feel a tingle of nostalgia, the feeling of fighting at her side, of once again working together towards something. There's a silence, followed by a few murmurs that none of us can make out. Min speaks first. You are, by far, the worst agent I've ever recruited, she says. After all this is done, you will stand trial, as well as your brother and those working around you. It won't be the first time I've been on trial, I say stiffly. After this is done, the president will issue a temporary pardon for you. When you land, the military will be there to greet you and assist, as is practical with what you need. You will have AIS resources, she sighs, and I hope, for your sake, that your plan works. I'm not holding my breath, though. Don't make me pay for your funerals out of the AIS budget wing. I don't have the balance for it. You won't have to, I reply. You might want to set aside a fund for our parade, though. I hate you, Wing. I love you, Director. Anjin's voice comes on again. Commander, he says, I expect you to be careful. I don't want to appoint someone new, understood? June bows her head. Of course, Elector. And that's it. The call ends, and far below our plane, the clouds close in.